Hi, boys and girls. I'm going to try and read our fourth chapter of Harry Potter outside today because the sun is out and it's so nice. I got Duncan here with me. R2's out here. We got some neighbors shooting hoops across the way, so you might hear some noise in the background. But hopefully you can hear me good enough. All right, we left off. Remember, Harry and the Dursleys were trapped in that cabin in the middle of the ocean, and Harry was counting down the seconds to his birthday. I'm going to reread that part because it's so exciting. 1 minute to go until he'd be 11. 30 seconds. 20. 10. 9. Maybe he'd wake Dudley up just to annoy him. 3. 2. 1. Boom! The whole shack shivered, and Harry sat bolt upright, staring at the door. Someone was outside, knocking to come in. Chapter 4 is called The Keeper of the Keys. The book we're reading online doesn't have those pictures. All right. Boom! They knocked again, and Dudley jerked awake. "Where's the cannon?" he said stupidly. There was a crash behind them, and Uncle Vernon came skidding into the room. He was holding a rifle in his hands. Now they knew what had been in the long, thin package he had brought with them. "Who's there?" he shouted. "I warn you, I'm armed." There was a pause, and then smash! The door was hit with such force that it swung clean off its hinges and with a deafening crash landed flat on the floor. A giant of a man was standing in the doorway. His face was almost completely hidden by a long, shaggy mane of hair and a wild, tangled beard, but you could make out his eyes. You could make out his eyes glinting like black beetles under all the hair. The giant squeezed his way into the hut, stooping so that his head just brushed the ceiling. He bent down, picked up the door, and fitted it easily back into its frame. The noise of the storm outside dropped a little, and he turned to look at them all. Couldn't make us a cup of tea, could you? It's not been an easy journey." He strode over to the sofa where Dudley was sitting, frozen in fear. "Budge up, you big lump," said the stranger. Dudley squeaked, and he ran to hide behind his mother, who was crouching terrified behind Uncle Vernon. "Ah, here you are, Harry," said the giant. Harry looked up into the fierce, wild, shadowy face and saw the beetle eyes were crinkled in a smile. "Last time I saw you, you was only a baby," said the giant. "You look a lot like your dad, but, you got your mom's eyes." Uncle Vernon made a funny, rasping noise. "I demand that you leave at once, sir. You're breaking and entering." "Ah, shut up, Dursley, you great prune," said the giant, and he reached over the back of the sofa, jerked the gun out of Uncle Vernon's hands, and he bent it into a knot as easily if it had been made of rubber, and then he threw it across the room. Uncle Vernon made another funny noise, like a mouse being trodden on. "Anyway, Harry," said the giant, turning his back on the Dursleys, "happy birthday to you. I got something for you here. Might have sat on it at some point, but it'll taste all right." And from inside a pocket of his black overcoat, he pulled a slightly squashed box. Harry opened it with trembling fingers, and inside was a large, sticky chocolate cake with "Happy Birthday, Harry" written on it in green icing. Harry looked up at the giant. He meant to say thank you, but the words got lost on the way to his mouth, and what he said instead was, "Who are you?" The giant chuckled. "Oh, yeah, right. I haven't introduced myself. Rubeus Hagrid, keeper of the keys and grounds at Hogwarts." He held out an enormous hand and shook Harry's whole arm. "All right, what about that tea then, eh?" he said, rubbing his hands together. "I'd not say no to something stronger if you got it, mind." His eyes fell on the empty grate with the shriveled chip bags in it, and he snorted. He bent down over the fireplace. They couldn't see what he was doing, but when he drew back a second later, there was a roaring fire there, and it filled the whole damp hut with flickering light, and Harry felt the warmth wash over him as though he'd been sunk into a hot bath. The giant sat back down on the sofa, which sagged under his weight, and began taking all sorts of things out of his pockets. A copper kettle, a squashy package of sausages, a poker, a teapot, several chipped mugs, and a bottle of some amber liquid that he took a swig from before starting to make the tea. Soon the hut was full of the sound and smell of sizzling sausage. Nobody said a thing while the giant was working, but as he slid the first 6 fat, juicy, slightly burnt sausages from the poker, Dudley started to fidget a little. Uncle Vernon said sharply, "Don't touch anything he gives you, Dudley." The giant chuckled darkly. "Your great puddin' of a son don't need fattening any more, Dursley. Don't you worry." He passed the sausages to Harry, who was so hungry he had never tasted anything. Traffic. Lots of kids have been going on their four-wheelers. I hope when you're out, you're being safe, everybody. He passed the sausages to Harry, who was so hungry he had never tasted anything so wonderful, but he still couldn't take his eyes off the giant. Finally, as nobody seemed about to explain anything, he said, "I'm sorry, but I still don't understand who you are." The giant took a gulp of tea and wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. "You can call me Hagrid," he said. "Everybody does. And like I told you, I'm keeper of keys at Hogwarts." You'll know all about Hogwarts, of course. No, said Harry. That's our dog. He's just barking at maybe a cat nearby. No, I don't know about Hogwarts, said Harry. Hagrid looked shocked. "Sorry," said Harry quickly. "Sorry?" barked Hagrid, turning to stare at the Dursleys, who shrank back into the shadows. "It's them as should be sorry. I knew you weren't getting your letters, but I never thought you wouldn't know about Hogwarts, for crying out loud. Did you never wonder where your parents learned it all?" "All what?" asked Harry. "Oh, what?" Hagrid thundered. "Now wait just 1 second." He had leapt to his feet in his anger. He seemed to fill the whole hut, and the Dursleys cowered against the wall. "Do you mean to tell me," he growled at the Dursleys, "that this boy doesn't know nothing about anything?" Harry thought this was going a bit far. He'd been to school after all, and his marks weren't too bad. "I know some things," he said. "I can, do math and multiply and stuff." But Hagrid simply waved his hand and said, "About our world. I mean your world. My world. Your parents' world." "What world?" Hagrid looked as if he was about to explode. "Dursley!" he boomed. Uncle Vernon, who had gone very pale, whispered something that sounded like "Mimble Wimble." Hagrid stared wildly at Harry. "But you must know about your mom and dad," he said. "I mean, they're famous. You're famous." "What? But my mom and dad weren't famous, were they?" "You don't know? You don't know?" Hagrid ran his fingers through his hair, fixing Harry with a bewildered stare. "You don't know what you are?" he said finally. Uncle Vernon suddenly found his voice. "Stop!" he commanded. "Stop right there, sir. I forbid you to tell the boy anything." A braver man than Vernon Dursley would have quailed under the furious look Hagrid now gave him. When Hagrid spoke, his every syllable trembled with rage. "You never told him? You never told him what was in the letter that Dumbledore left for him? I was there. I saw Dumbledore leave it, Dursley, and you've kept it from him all these years." "Kept what from me?" asked Harry eagerly. "Stop! I forbid it!" yelled Uncle Vernon in a panic. Aunt Petunia gave a gasp of horror. Go boil your heads, both of you," said Hagrid. "Harry, you're a wizard." There was a silence inside the hut. Only the sea and the whistling wind could be heard. "I'm a what?" gasped Harry. "A wizard, of course," said Hagrid, sitting back down on the sofa, which groaned and sank even lower. "And a thumping good un, I'd say, once you've been trained up a bit. With a mum and dad like yours, what else could you be? And I reckon it's about time you read your letter." Harry stretched out his hand to take the yellowish envelope addressed in emerald green to Mr. H. Potter, the floor, hut on the rock, the sea. He pulled out the letter and started to read. That's where we'll stop it today. Hope you liked it.